Australia's economy is growing at its slowest pace since the 1990s recession, having yesterday recorded its weakest rate of annual growth in years. While Australia has avoided a recession, many households are already feeling the pinch. Yesterday's GDP figures revealed government spending and migration prevented the economy from going backwards in the June quarter.
But on a per capita basis, households hit by 13 rate rises in 2 years and a cost of living crisis are being forced to tighten their belts like it's the 90s. Our political reporter Evelyn Manfield joins us now from Parliament House. Evelyn, what are the details? Just dive into the numbers for us in terms of these ABS figures.
The national accounts figures from yesterday, Bridget, show incredibly weak economic growth, just 0.2% in the June quarter and then 1% across the year to June. So outside of the COVID years, this is the worst economic growth since the early 90s, the 1991 recession, as you point to. An interesting element of those set of numbers was the GDP per person figures. They fell for the 6th quarter in a row, showing that household living standards are going backwards. People also not putting as much money into their savings accounts. No surprises really there. And also household spending was another interesting one. That dropped by 0.2% in the June quarter, with people cutting back on things like eating out and air travel. And that's certainly what we've been hearing from businesses, seeing less people in their restaurants and cafes, and also people having to opt for things like frozen fruit and veggies rather than fresh ones, just to try and save where they can. Now, it was government spending and migration that was really propping up the economy, but there's been debate this morning about whether that government spending is a good thing, particularly long term.
Any relief is welcome, but the problem with that relief is it's just the band-aid on the bullet hole. It's not actually fixing the problem at its source. Rather than delivering lower energy prices, the government's delivering subsidies for higher energy prices. Once those subsidies are removed, well, of course, that increases the price again, and that causes inflation to go up.
I don't take economic advice from the opposition. Obviously, they're there to make a political point. Our focus, Jim and my focus, is really on making the right decisions for the right time. That's why, you know, in budget we made some decisions about cost of living support. We knew this quarter would be difficult and government has a role to play.
And Evelyn, I guess this all means that we're going to be talking more about interest rates, the rate rises that have affected many Australians over the past couple of years. What's likely to be the take from the political parties on this?
Yeah, look, it's certainly a bit of a waiting game and perhaps a guessing game as well, really, Bridget. But certainly economists are hopeful that with those weaker spending numbers yesterday, that it could lead to inflation coming back down, hopefully within that band of between 2 and 3% sooner than later. And then hopefully it can lead the RBA to be able to cut those interest rates that we've been hearing from the Treasurer for so long now that are really sticky. He's been saying earlier this week that it's interest rates that are smashing the economy. And yesterday, I guess the government are now saying that those numbers really prove that point about just how much pain households are feeling across Australia. Also a point made by the Treasurer yesterday that we did hear from the RBA earlier that the economy has been running too hot. He says now that that is a bit hard to justify that commentary. So it now becomes a game of when will the RBA cut those interest rates, and really we'll just have to wait and see. But I know there's a lot of people hanging on to that one, Bridget.
Yeah, that's right. Evelyn, thanks a lot. Liberal Senator Linda Reynolds says she's glad her defamation trial against her former staffer Brittany Higgins is finally over. The trial has finished after almost 4 weeks of hearings. The Liberal MP claimed social media posts by Ms Higgins had damaged her reputation.
It's taken a toll on me and everybody I love, and so it was very good for me after 3.5 years to be able to tell my story.
The federal government has announced it will create mandatory rules for artificial intelligence, as a new survey finds a third of Australian businesses aren't telling their employees or customers they're using the technology. It comes as the Industry Minister Ed Husic announces mandatory guardrails will be set on the highest risk AI, which could be covered by a new AI Act similar to laws in the European Union.
New research has revealed that Tasmanians are more likely to get sunburnt than residents in any other state or territory. A survey of 8,500 people was conducted by the Australian Bureau of Statistics and funded by the Cancer Councils of Australia to better understand how people use sun protection. The data shows 1 in 14 of those surveyed had been sunburned in the past week.
Scientists have calculated the world is producing almost 52 million tonnes of plastic pollution every year, and we're warning that it will haunt generations to come. Now, that's enough to fill 3 Sydney harbours every year. The figure does not include plastics that are disposed of in controlled burns or sent to landfill. Most, in fact, is generated in developing and underdeveloped countries, which simply do not have organised systems of disposal.
Australians are being encouraged to engage in casual sport following the release of findings from a major study into concussion. The study of more than 15,000 participants aged between 50 and 90 found head injuries from amateur sports aren't linked to greater long-term risks of cognitive decline and suggests that playing sport may actually have a protective effect on the brain. Researchers say the long-term benefits from playing sport could outweigh any negative impacts of concussion.
While parts of the country are roasting, Western Australia is anticipating snowfalls today on the Stirling Ranges. The Weather Bureau is forecasting the possibility of snow flurries in the state's far southwest.
If you are a snow chaser in southwest Western Australia, this morning's the time to go out there, but it's not expected to bring very much snow and it's not expected to be very long lasting.